Hello everyone, this is Rig and today we are going to discuss about Mesolithic cultures in the Indian subcontinent. Now this is a video which is in continuation with the earlier video that I made on the Paleolithic cultures of the Indian subcontinent. Now let's go into details. Mesolithic age. What is Mesolithic age? Mesolithic age, the term actually means middle stone age. This is a period which succeeded the Upper Paleolithic period. Upper Paleolithic period was roughly up to 10,000 BC onwards, and after that, it was the start of a new Stone Age period called Mesolithic period. Now, the economy of this period, as before, it was hunting and gathering. So, people hunted their foods, their animals, to gather foods. Now, the soil sample from Birbhanpur in West Bengal shows that there was an increase in aridity. Aridity means the climate of West Bengal became drier. Now, as we know, in different parts of Indian subcontinent, there used to be different types of climate, which prevails even today. So, uh, climate in one part of India will definitely differ from other part of India. As we have seen in the east, we have drier climate during the Mesolithic time that we get by analyzing the soil sample from Birbhanpur. Next up, the salt lake sediment analysis from Didwana in Rajasthan shows that there was an increase in rainfall. So, in the upper Paleolithic times, there was a decrease in population, the climate became dry, the monsoon winds became very weak. But in Mesolithic age, there was a surge in resources in vegetation, and hence there was an increase in population. The climate become warm and wet in Madhya Pradesh. So in Madhya Pradesh, that is central India, the Vindhyan ranges are have very prominent Mesolithic sites, which we will discuss later. But before we go into details, let us see what was the climate like. It was warm and wet climate in the central India. There was increase in and the number of sites, which suggests that there was increase in population. So almost all the rock sites, all the sites where there was rock shelters had Mesolithic population in it. Mesolithic culture occurs virtually in each one of the several thousand rock shelters all around the Indian subcontinent. So uh, it can be quite rightly guessed that there was a huge increase in resources in vegetation, and thus there was sufficient food for the people to start a new age in stone culture. Now, how was the geographical distribution? So, there are many important features of Mesolithic geographical distribution. Now, since you know the sites and the number of sites increase, the number of population among the people increase, therefore, new places needed to be occupied in order to sustain the population. Hence, Mesolithic artifacts are virtually present on every one of the thousand sand dune sites in Rajasthan. So, this sand dune over a period of time, when it stays on a fixed place, it forms a hard structure on which humans can live. So these are called dune sites. So sand dune sites in Rajasthan, every sand dune sites in Rajasthan had Mesolithic artifacts in them. Colonization of Ganga plains. So in all the Paleolithic periods, that is lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic, we found out that the Gangetic Delta, that is the region of Uttar Pradesh, Upper Madhya Pradesh, and Bihar, all these places where the alluvial plains of Ganga are present, used to stay barren. People did not used to live there, probably because of the too much wet climate and too much dense forest in that area. So this is for the first time during Mesolithic period we get colonization of Ganga plains. Now, which are the places in Ganga plains that were colonized? They are Allahabad, Pratapgarh, Jaunpur, Mirzapur, and Varanasi districts of Uttar Pradesh. So all these districts in Uttar Pradesh has more than 200 archaeological sites bearing evidences of Mesolithic culture. Next up, we find effective colonization of deltaic region of West Bengal. Now, West Bengal has a delta called Sundarban in it. Most of it also is present on the country of Bangladesh, but West Bengal and Bangladesh share the largest delta in the world, that is Sundarban. When the Ganga and Brahmaputra meets together, the water divides into several distributaries and forms a delta at the estuary. This is called the Gangetic Delta or Ganga Brahmaputra Delta, known as Sundarban. So this was the place where for the first time we get evidences of human population or colonization during the Mesolithic period. West coast, particularly around Mumbai, even though there was vegetation in the western coastal area, but the area around Mumbai was actually barren. So in the west coast, particularly around Mumbai, we get evidences of human occupation during the Mesolithic period. Kerala, Ejhutu Guha in Kerala, we will learn about it later, is a very famous site in Kerala bearing Mesolithic artifacts and also rock art evidences. Next, have to go into details about the climate. How was the climate? Many of the climatic features of Mesolithic period have already been discussed in the introductory slide, but let's get into details. Increased rainfall, so there was huge increase in rainfall because upper Paleolithic period was the driest period of Pleistocene era. So after that there was an increase in rainfall. This led to increased vegetation. So this is a reaction process. If there is increased rainfall, there will be more amount of greeneries everywhere. That leads to increased vegetation, hence increase in food resources. Since it was a hunting and gathering economy, people depended on natural sources of food. That means the fruits that appeared in the plants and the wild animals that were there in the forest of dense vegetation. Hence, there was an increase in food resources with increase in rainfall. This led to increased population. If you are well fed, there will be regeneration of population. So that was the fact during the Mesolithic time. The pollen data from salt lakes of western Rajasthan show that there was an increase in rainfall in the northwestern part of Indian subcontinent. The Mesolithic period marks the start of Holocene. Now, Quaternary period is divided into two parts, that is Pleistocene and Holocene. Pleistocene ended with the lower Paleolithic, with the end of upper Paleolithic period, and the Mesolithic period marks the start of Holocene. We are currently in the Holocene period only. There was heavy rainfall in the monsoon months, as we have seen in our earlier presentation, that during the upper Paleolithic time, the monsoon became very weak. The monsoon winds, the southwest monsoon winds that basically feeds the Indian vegetation, and as as a reaction to it, the population thrive. So the monsoon became a lot heavier during the Mesolithic period. Moderate rainfall also happened in winter. Even today, we get winter rains during the months of mid December to mid January. So, the moderate rainfall in winter was also there during the Mesolithic period. Holocene became dry in about 4,000 to 3,000 years ago. So, Mesolithic began in about 10,000 years ago, up to from there up to 4,000 to 3,000 years ago, we get a much wetter phase than it is today. The climate was more wet, there was a lot of moisture in the air. Now, what we see is actually the drier part of Holocene period. Mesolithic was the wet part of the Holocene period. Next up, we have technology. Now, technology is the archaeological marker of an era. So, the kind of tools the people use defines an era. So, thus, we need to pay a lot of emphasis on the technological advances made in each of the Stone Age periods, since this is the only evidence we get about the certain period because the other biodegradable materials does not survive. The epipaleolithic tools of the transition period. So these are the tools which were in between the upper paleolithic and the mesolithic. These tools were smaller than the tools that were used in the upper paleolithic period, but bigger in size than the tools that were used in mesolithic period. So these are called epipaleolithic tools. The Mesolithic period primarily is based on microlith. It's just like the main feature of Upper Paleolithic period were blades. Similarly, the main feature of Mesolithic period are microliths. Now, what are microliths? These are tiny tools made from micro blades of 1 to 5 centimeter in length. So these are very small, like your fingers, even smaller than your fingers. So these were tools made from small pieces of flakes. Flakes are the pieces of stone which we take out from the core material in order to make tools. So these were small flakes of 1 to 5 centimeter in length, which were used for numerous purposes. Now we will get into details of how it was made. Blunting of one or more sides with steep retouch. Retouch means at first we will make the stone tool, then with another stone we will do something in it for more efficiency. This technique is called the technique of retouching. And blunting of one or more side of the flake used to be done with the help of steep retouching technique in order to fulfill the purpose of every tool. Now the main tool types were backed blades, obliquely truncated blades, points, crescents, triangles, and trapeze. So these were the main shapes of tools that we get during this Mesolithic period. The raw materials which were used in making the tools were quartzite, chert, chalcedony, jasper, and agate. So these are the stones from which Mesolithic tools were made. Now, how were they used? They were used as components of spearheads, arrowheads, knives, and sickles, and harpoons and daggers. So, all these were the instruments that were used and that were made by using the microlithic tools of the Mesolithic period. Now, how they were attached, how were the microliths attached together in order to form a tool? They were fitted into grooves in bone. Grooves means the engravings in bone, wood, and reed shafts and joined together by natural adhesives like gum and resin. So, gum and resins are plant based adhesives which were used in order to fit the microliths to a fragment of bone, wood, or reed shafts and make them an efficient tool for subsistence, for hunting, for grinding the plant products, or processing of food. Now, next up, we have the fact that hafting. What is hafting? Hafting is a procedure to hafting is a procedure to attach a wooden shaft to a stone in order to make an handle out of it and throw it or to use it more efficiently. So, hafting came during the Mesolithic period, which is much later in India compared to those of the cultures of Africa and Europe. Bow and arrow for hunting became common during this period. It can be seen in the rock art of Bhimbetka, Ejutu caves, and many other sites in Indian subcontinent. That bow and arrow was a very common tool used for hunting. Small flake tools like side end, round, and thumbnail scrapers became very common. Scrapers are the tools which act as a separating material of use to separate the skin from animals, to rub something out of a thing, or to do all these things. Scrapers were very efficient tool. So small flake tools like side end, round, and thumbnail scrapers were very common. Bifacial points, bifacial means points, it is a kind of a needle like instrument, points which had to which could be used from both the sides were bifacial points, and they were made by pressure flaking, and this is one of the main tool making technique of the Mesolithic period. Now what is pressure flaking? Pressure flaking is to remove the unwanted substance from the stone with the help of applying pressure. So this is the process of pressure flaking, and pressure flaking was used for making bifacial points. Board stones are basically stones which has a lot of weight, so those stones were used in digging sticks means digging sticks is a procedure where you place a stick in the soil and you hit it with a stone in order to make a hole, or in order to stick that stick firmly in the soil. So those were the purpose of the board stones, and they were also used as net singers. Nets were made up of animal or plant skins, plant barks were used, or leaves were used for making fishing nets, and so that the net sinks totally in order to catch fish. Weight used to be placed in them, and those were the board stones which were used as net sinkers. Shallow querns and grinding stones also occur at several sites. These are the stones which were used for the processing of plant based food. This enhanced the efficiency in hunting. This technological advancement of microliths during the Mesolithic period enhanced the efficiency in hunting, collecting, and processing of wild plant foods. So, thus, technology played one of the most important role in the Mesolithic period for the advancement of human culture in general. Next up, we have one of the very important collection of stone tools from a site in Rajasthan. So here at the bottom you can see the small microliths, and on the tray at the bottom corner also you can see different kinds of microliths. Now these were made up of quartzite, jasper, chert, chalcedony, all the siliceous stones. Siliceous stones means the stones which have an amount of silica present in it, mostly silica. And so those are called siliceous stones. Those were used in the making of Mesolithic tools, especially the microliths. Now burials. Now, Mesolithic period is significant for its rock art, for the microliths, and for the burials. This is the first time in the Indian subcontinent we find evidences of burials where dead body was buried in the ground. Now, what? Let's get into details about the burials. So, the first evidence of burial in the Indian subcontinent comes during the Mesolithic period. Rock shelter sites and the presence of large cemeteries, particularly in the Ganga plains, had burials in it. Now, burials are of many kinds. We will go through them one by one. Now, where else in India was it found? Burials were found in Bagor in Rajasthan. This Bagor site is not to be confused with the Baghor site in central India. So Bagor in Rajasthan, Langnaj in Gujarat. Langnaj is in Gujarat is another important site for burial, and it is not only important for burial. This is the place where for the first time we find evidences of pottery during the Mesolithic period. Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh, Bhimbetka in the Raisin district of Madhya Pradesh has a large number of rock art sites which also house a large number of burials. Lekhatia, Baghaikor, and Morana Pahar in northern India also has a large amount of burials in it. Now, three important sites in Uttar Pradesh, namely Sarai Nahar Rai, Mahadaha, and Damdama, are very important because these sites did not have only single burials but also burials with many individuals. So, a place in the soil was dug up and more than one body were placed in it. Now, these three sites are formed on the banks of Oxbow lakes. What are oxbow lakes? Oxbow lakes are the lakes formed when water of a river accumulates in a place in the shape of an oxbow. So it is a bended crescent type lake structure. And all these three sites, Sara, Naharai, Mahadaha, and Damdama, are in very close proximity to each other on the banks of Oxbow Lake in Uttar Pradesh. Now, they are buried in graves both in extended and crouched positions. So, burials are mainly here of two types. One is extended burial, where the body is placed in a straight manner without any joints being bent. It is placed in a flat position. And crouched position is done when there is less of space and the body is bent in a crouched position, mainly in sitting position, in order to fit it into the grave. Sometimes two individuals were buried in a single grave, as we have seen in Saranaharai, Mahadaha, and Damdama. Now, grave goods. What are grave goods? In those periods, people used to believe that there is a life after death, which we call afterlife, and the soul or the human who has died may need some things in its afterlife. So that the person who goes into afterlife does not have any difficulty while burial, along with the dead body, a few things used to be placed with it in order to sustain their afterlife needs. So, what were those things during the Mesolithic time? Chunks of meat, grinding stones, normal stone, bone, and antler ornaments. Antler ornaments means ornaments made with the horns of deer. Antler ornaments and pieces of hematite. Hematites are iron ores. So all these things were put inside the burial along with the dead body, because the people during that time used to believe in afterlife. Now, here is a picture of an extended burial. In the first picture, you see an extended burial, a single burial, and in the second picture, you see a crouched position burial along with two individuals. So, this is a single burial, and this is the next picture is a double burial. Now, Mesolithic art. Mesolithic period is most famous for its art. Uh, Different rock art sites are present all around India, which house a significant amount of art that is famous in the world. Means all the Mesolithic art in the Indian subcontinent have been declared, especially the art in Bhimbetka have been also declared as World Heritage Site by UNESCO. So, at first, we will go through the portable art. Portable art means art forms which could be carried from one place to the other to another. So, geometric design is found at Chandravati in Rajasthan. So, this is a very important artifact that could be moved, and it contains geometric designs engraved on a chart stone in a site of Chandravati in Rajasthan. Now, engraved bone objects are also found from Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh. So, these are the two famous portable arts. Now, let us go into proper rock art sites in Indian subcontinent. And first up, we have the site discovered by ACL Carlyle. He was an official of Archaeological Survey of India. He discovered the first rock paintings in Shohagi Ghat in Kaimur Hills of Mirzapur district in Uttar Pradesh. So at that point of time, this was the first rock art discovered all over the world. So ACL Carlyle did an important discovery, and thus we came to know about the Mesolithic period in the Indian subcontinent. 150 Mesolithic rock art sites have been discovered in the subcontinent till date, and many researches are yet to be done in them also. In 1957, V.S. Wakankar discovered Bhimbetka. He was traveling from Bhopal by train, and while passing through the area of Vindhyan Bhimbetka, he noticed unusual rocks and noticed something which led him to believe that there could be prehistoric evidences. So he got down in the next station only, and thus one of the most important rock art sites all over the world was discovered. There are 642 rock shelters in Bhimbetka, out of which about 400 have rock paintings, engravings, and brushings in them. Other rock sites in Madhya Pradesh are also there other than Bhimbetka. They are the Kharwar, Jaura, Kathotia, and Lakhjowar. So these are the other famous rock art sites other than Bhimbetka which are present in Madhya Pradesh itself. Next up, let's go into details about Bhimbetka. This is one of the most important historical sites in the whole Indian subcontinent. It was studied in phases. At first, a study was made by B.S. Wakankar, then after a few years, Yashodhar Matpal, and after that, Erwin Neumayer. All of them studied the different rock arts in Bhimbetka and tried to interpret the Mesolithic culture from it. Matpal identified three phases of rock paintings with further subphases. Now, all the three phases were not Mesolithic. There were Upper Paleolithic also, and after Mesolithic also, rock art continued in Bhimbetka. But the major important rock arts were done during the Mesolithic time only. Hence, we tend to discuss Bhimbetka on the context of Mesolithic rock art only. 16 colors or shades can be identified in the Bhimbetka paintings, and the most common among them were white and red. So these were the colors which were used most often. So how were these colors made? Colors were made from minerals which were grounded and mixed with water or animal fat, marrow, and egg white. So these are the binding material for colors. Colors were obtained from natural minerals, and they were mixed with all these adhesives in order to be used as colors on the cave walls. So what were the minerals? Iron oxide, geru. Iron oxide is locally called as geru. This was used to make the red color. Limestone was used to make the white color. Chalcedony were also used for making different colors. So all these material minerals were to be grinded and mixed with animal fat, marrow, or egg white in order to make cave paintings out of it. Brushes were made from squirrel tail, animal fur, etc. There were 29 species of animals that we find in the walls of Bhimbetka. Now, what were the major animals we find? Elephant, rhino, leopard, tiger, panther, deer, and along with it we also find different kinds of birds, fish, lizards, etc. And one of the most interesting facts about Bhimbetka is that despite having a wet climate, no snakes are depicted. It was very natural for snakes to be present in those areas, but because of some mysterious reason, no snakes are depicted in the Bhimbetka paintings. This is a point from which question comes in different comparative exams. Next up, we have more details about Bhimbetka. Hunting scenes were depicted where hunter wears mask and hunts in groups. So masks were probably a symbol of status during those times. A hunter, we find the lead hunter wearing mask, and they used to hunt in groups. We don't find any single hunter hunting a big animal species. Now, what were the weapons the hunters used? Weapons were mainly sticks, spears, arrows, and slings. Slings are objects through which we can throw stones up to a far distance. So, these are the weapons which were used in hunting. Now, the paintings are mainly in X-ray style, which means only the structures, the hands are depicted like sticks, and legs and all the organs of the body are also sometimes shown. The inner organs, including fetuses in the wombs of female animals, are also drawn sometimes in order to signify fertility or animals being pregnant. Bhimbetka boar is a famous painting in Bhimbetka which has a body of a boar. It is a potpourri of different animals. Body of a boar, snout like a rhinoceros, underlip of an elephant, and horns of a buffalo. So this is a mixed animal, a hypothetical animal, which were drawn in Bhimbetka, which was drawn in Bhimbetka, and it is a very famous sight to see. Masked dancers, also called dancing sorcerers, are shown in many paintings. Like there was a fire, a campfire kind of thing, around which there were dancers wearing mask. So this may significant ritual specialist. Even though we have almost no idea about the ritual that used to go on at that period of time, but it can be guessed that they had something to do with spirituality and rituals. Leather bags, in many paintings we see that leather bags were used in order to hold water. Now leather bags are biodegradable materials, hence none of it has survived. Basket like containers were used for storing food. So when the people used to go around, they used to have leather bags for water and baskets for storing food. People dancing is shown in many paintings, and also in many paintings it is shown that people are falling off until they could dance no more. Division of labor on the basis of gender has been shown in the paintings of Bhimbetka. This means that household works were shown by the females. How do we understand it? They are females. They had more ornaments and more clothes in their body, and also the males were thinner. So they females have been shown to do household work, whereas men have been shown to do the works like hunting and gathering food. So these are the caves of Bhimbetka, some images from the caves of Bhimbetka. And the first picture at the upper left hand side corner, we see how the paintings were done on the roof of caves. And to see the paintings in more detail, we see animals here, different kinds of cows and buffaloes have been shown in the second painting. In the third painting, we see the use of bows and arrows as a feature of hunting. We see people hunting a single animal in groups, and bows and arrows are being used in order to injure the animal and cause its death. And also we see beating of drums. People used to beat the drums in order to scare that animal, probably. And the last painting is of the famous Bhimbetka boar that we discussed. It has snout like a boar, body of a boar, and snout like an elephant, and also horns of a buffalo. So you can see this is a hypothetical animal painted by the people in Bhimbetka during the Mesolithic time. Next up, we have other rock art sites. Now, along with Bhimbetka, there are also other famous rock art sites all around India. A few of them are that there are 55 rock art sites in western districts of Odisha, especially in the district of Sundargarh and Sambalpur. So the places of Sundargarh and Sambalpur has 55 rock art sites. There are 12 rock art sites in the Lekhamoda group in reserve forest of Chenga Pahad and Garjan Pahad. So in the dense vegetation, people used to stay there during the Mesolithic times, and we find 12 rock art sites. Ejhutu Guha in Kerala, in the sandalwood forest of Iduku district, also has many rock art sites with a lot of paintings. An abstract painting has been found in Madhya Pradesh that reflects a view of the world showing consisting of earth, air, and water. So this is an abstract painting which interpreters or archaeologists think that it depicts that the world is made up of air, earth, and water. But nothing is confirmed until we find any written evidences, and since in prehistory there are no written evidences, therefore we will have to depend on guesses only. Thus, these are the other famous rock art sites, Mesolithic rock art sites other than Bhimbetka. Now, this the first painting that you see here are the paintings of Ejhutu Guha in Idukki district of Kerala, and this is the abstract painting that I was talking about. It has the depiction of air, water, and earth in it. So these are the two famous evidences of rock art sites in Indian subcontinent other than Bhimbetka. Now, chronology. Chronology, as we have discussed before, it is a very confusing matter in the prehistoric times because different parts of India had different periods at a single point of time. So, chronology, if we go by dating large number of Mesolithic sites, C14 dating in western and central India, it will show that there was a range from 10,000 to 2,000 years before present. BP signifies before present. So Mesolithic can in the Indian subcontinent can be seen from 10,000 to 2,000 years before present. Food production began from around 6000 BC. So from 6000 BC, we can see a new age of food production, which is also called Neolithic. That we will discuss in our next presentation. But Neolithic starting in one part of India does not mean Mesolithic totally stopped in other parts. As I said, different periods of evolution happened at the same time in different parts of India. So, food production began from around 6000 BC. Hunting gathering still continued after food production, also hunting gathering continued. And these are the famous Mesolithic sites in India. Here in the part of Uttar Pradesh, we can see that three sites, Sarar, Nahar, Rai, Damdama, and Mahadama, are present. In West Bengal, we can see the site of Birbhanpur from which soil analysis had been done. Here in Rajasthan, we find the site of Didwana, from which from the pollen analysis of the dune sites here in Dhankhedi, we find out that the climate was much wet. In the Vindhyan ranges of Madhya Pradesh, we find Bhimbetka. In Kerala, we have Tenmalai forest and Teri sites, which also has rock art. And also here in Chitrakoot Falls, we find the districts of Sambalpur and Sundargarh in western part of Orissa. So these are the famous rock art sites and Mesolithic sites in India, which are very important in the context of Mesolithic culture. So that was all about Mesolithic culture. That was all the information I could procure from different sources. And next video will be on the Neolithic cultures. I am planning all this video with very limited resources. Hence, please support me so that I can make more interesting content in the future. Thank you.